I'll just put immortality. Right? And what ends up happening is that we take sort of the symbolism, the allegorical or metaphorical account of rebirth. I have been introduced, so for example, I remember before I became introduced to philosophy, I wasn't introduced to I didn't start to do rational deliberation myself, to be honest with you, till I was about 25-ish, maybe. About 25 is when it first hit me. Some people are introduced to, you know, like, I gotta give shout outs to all of the young viewers who've responded. Complacency Among Us, Secular Numinous, Ian Matthew 7. These guys have been doing it in their teens. I'm envious. I was, you know, I just lived life like anybody else. I took a philosophy class as an exit requirement, and then I was like, holy crap. I've been hoodwinked and bamboozled, right? Rebirth was, wow, now I understand. It's like, I'll never forget. It was probably the most profound moment in my life. I'm in class with an African philosopher, and I'm just blown away by his lecture. And I'm like, I can't believe, like, what are you talking? Like, I didn't know what philosophy was. And insofar I was introduced to it, my life has never been the same. It changed the way I looked at the world. That transformation in my worldview is a rebirth of Jason Campbell. I became someone different than I used to be. I recognized, no, I can use my mind. I can really use my mind to understand the world. And ultimately myself and my people and I can use my mind to understand anything, right? And that was a transformation in me. To take that symbolism and then try to say that rebirth is and posit that rebirth into a body, to say now that the body is perpetually reborn, it's not. I mean, that's according to Nietzsche, the most grievous error, the most grievous misunderstanding of the symbolism informing what Nietzsche called the Christian essence, right? The essence of Christianity, right? So this idea of personal immortality, yeah, a lot of believers believe that your physical body is going to exist forever, rather than a recognition that when we talk about rebirth, it's not a rebirth of the physical biological body that's going to die. It's a rebirth of my interpretive abilities, right? Now I have, and this is why I am so adamant that you guys participate in the call for contribution. When I put a video contribution out, it's important because now it forces you to process and think, and you have to change how you think in order to be able to do what it is that I'm doing and the other contributors have done. Right? You have to, even if you critique Nietzsche, I don't even care. I'm not saying that you have to believe it. You can say, you can be a Christian, you can be a believer as much as you want and say, here's why he's wrong. But at least use rational deliberation to critique him. Don't just appeal to some external source and say, well, he said that and now it's wrong, right? So this idea of personal immortality is an idea that has been proven true because so many people believe it, right? And Nietzsche's saying, again, this, you know, let's rationally think about this, right? How does this work, right? Okay. Number 3, transubstantiation, right? The idea of transubstantiation, Nietzsche actually has a really cool piece where he talks about transubstantiation in note 70. He says, brotherhood on the basis, I'm reading note 170 directly, brotherhood on the basis of sharing food and drink together after the Hebrew-Arabic custom as the miracle of transubstantiation, right? So instead of looking at it as a symbolic gesture of two warring factions, as he says, Hebrew and Arabic customs, right? Sharing food amongst each other, or as people, independent of each other, sharing food among ourselves, rather than looking at the narrative symbolically, people are looking at the narrative of transubstantiation as, you know, there was an infinite breaking of bread, right? That we were able to substance transcend substance, right? We were able to, in a sense, embody the symbol within the physical world. And what people have to recognize, it's, you know, for me, and, you know, the more I do this, the more exhausted I get myself, because it's like, I don't know why it's so difficult. I really don't know why it's so difficult to recognize our actions should and ought to be, not all actions, but some actions should and ought to be informed by symbols, by very powerful icons, by meaning, right? So my reason for doing this particular series, I mean, I have my reasons, I'm not going to disclose it, but I have my reasons for, pushing. Obviously I have an agenda. I'm pushing the sort of the Nietzsche Will to Power series. Why am I doing that? Well, I'm doing it for a reason. That reason is informing me every day, day after day after day, hour after hour after hour, because I'm trying to get information out as quickly and as effectively and as accurately as possible. If it is the case, however, that I were to do this just for the sake of doing this, right, that there wasn't anything informing me, I couldn't be here. This camera wouldn't be on. I wouldn't be in this office now. I'd be doing something else with my life, right? Because I wouldn't find any meaning in it, right? Because I would be thinking about the afterlife, right? I'd be thinking about my own personal immortality. I'd be thinking about some other thing that's not here in this world, and I wouldn't be motivated to share as much as I am. And it's not like I'm doing it because I feel that I have to help all of the populations of the world and so on and so forth. But what it's important to recognize, and what I am trying to do more than anything, is to allow you to look at me. Not because I have some ego, but you can see what the process is. As I said in my What is Philosophy video, you're watching the process right now. I'm less interested in all of the semantics per se. We can argue that for a millennia, right? I'm more interested in you watching the process, and then you hopefully participating in the process through a viewer contribution. And then when my process is done, you now have a template. You can go off and do whatever you want. You can replicate the process time and time and time and time again. This is the process of the scientific method. This is how it's done. But this is like the bootleg philosophical version of that. So transubstantiation, T-R-A-N-S, S-U-B-S-T. Okay. Next is 4, is the resurrection and historical situatedness within time. We talked about that. Sort of the idea that the body is going to be erected after death. So we'll put resurrection. Number 5, the second person of divinity, right? The second person of divinity, and this was the idea that there is a Godhead. God sent his Son, Jesus Christ, to the world as sort of the second, you have God the Father, the Son, and then the Holy Spirit. God sends him a portion of himself to this world, and that portion of himself, Jesus Christ, sort of commingled with and helped, the suffering of those who were least fortunate, those who, and it's not, to be fair, it's not so much that there is a problem with helping those in need, right? What Nietzsche would say is that people have misunderstood and attempt to historicize the symbolism in the act of helping, right? In the act of helping, it's not about perpetual sort of giving, right? It's about empowerment. And there is a, maybe in another lecture series, it'd be interesting to see sort of I'm a little off tangent here, but to see the distinction between empowerment and empowering someone. You help, I give what I'm doing now to empower you, right? That's why on every single video on all of my YouTube channel, it says education is power at the top, not subscribe to me. It says education is power, because that's what it is. I'm hoping, my intent is to try and empower you. But if I recognize that, well, I don't think that the people are participating, I don't think that people are reading the text, I think that they're just using all of this for sort of good, discussion at dinner to impress their friends how smart they are. If I really believe that, then I would stop doing this, right? Because then it would be a perpetual. I would never be able to give you enough in order for you to be independent. And this is how we raise our children, right? You raise your children to a point, you give of yourself to your children until you recognize that they are now independent. When they're independent, you leave them and they live their life by themselves. if you recognize that you're giving, and there hasn't been a transformation, there comes a point at which you have to walk away. I can no longer help you now. It's